Becky in Washington. How can we learn and harness the parts of Scientology that seem to actually work? For example, recently I watched a video of yours in which a woman said that as a girl, her panic attacks were immediately cured after just one session. Or in Ron Miscavige's book, if I remember correctly, he said that David's asthma was quickly cured with Dianetics. Also, how did you meet your wife? You guys are very cute together, and I bet there's a good story there. Okay, so first question first. I want to stress something here about, like you mentioned, this girl's panic attacks or David Miscavige's asthma. Let's be clear about something. David Miscavige still suffers from asthma, according to former insiders who have spoken on this, like Mark Headley. He still got asthma. It did not cure anything. And in terms of, I looked up panic attacks, I looked up asthma. There is no cure for asthma, by the way. Asthma is something you manage. It's not something you cure. And if it's psychosomatic in nature, then I suppose it could surrender to some sort of, therapeutic approach. But that's not really what Dianetics is. Dianetics is hypnotism. At its base level, if you're going to look at what is it that makes Dianetics do what it does, it's putting somebody into a trance. It's running them back through, past incidents. It's got some similarity, I guess, in a way to EMDR, some similarity in ways to CBT. These things on a Venn diagram might cross in certain ways in terms of what it's doing up here, even if the methodologies are slightly different. Going back in your past and going back over traumatic episodes can be clarifying in some ways, even if you're in a trance state while you're doing it. So I'm not saying that there's zero therapeutic benefit to it. I've always said it has a limited amount of benefit in a limited number of cases. What Dianetics and Scientology claim in the books, what Hubbard claimed in the books of this, is that it's universally applicable and universally workable, and everybody will benefit from it. And that is just patently not true at all. It's a very small percentage of people who actually positively respond to those techniques. And even if you positively respond, that doesn't mean you're actually cured of physical ailments that have a physical source. And in the case of David Miscavige's asthma, that's the case. So he might have had some Dianetics auditing and felt better, might have entered a euphoric state, might have felt temporarily symptom-free, because a lot of symptomology, really all pain, all symptoms that you experience, you're experiencing up here. It's a created, it's a created sensation in your brain, right? So you can psychologically recreate that, or you can physically recreate that. And if you are able to enter a euphoric state about certain topics or areas for periods of time, euphoria is not a permanent state, then you can sort of release those psychologically caused symptoms, but you're not going to release the physically caused symptoms. If I come up to you in your euphoric state after your Dianetic session and hit you on the toe with a hammer, you're going to hurt, But if you were experiencing some sort of chronic pain that didn't have a physical source and you entered a euphoric state, then you might not re-experience those kind of chronic pains for a while. And that's not a cure. That's a sort of a release from it for a while. It's kind of gone for a little while, but it's going to probably come back. It might not. You might have actually addressed through accident some kind of part of the trauma that actually pops it. But like I said, this is a very rare circumstance among a very limited percentage of the population of people who have received this kind of counseling. So as far as, so I wanted to kind of lay that bare so that we're clear how I'm approaching quote unquote cures or relief of symptoms in a Dianetics or Scientology setting. Okay, I think it's really just a temporary state of affairs, or it's a placebo effect. Okay, so then you ask, well, how do we harness the power of that? Well, there is such a thing as hypnotherapy. I mean, I wouldn't particularly recommend going and getting it, but at least you're going to be, at least there's informed consent, and you understand exactly what the process is when you're going in, and they're not telling you that they're addressing your reactive mind, which is just some construct L. Ron Hubbard literally made up out of whole cloth, and they're not telling you, they're not preaching to you that they're going to cure all of your psychosomatic illnesses and you're never going to suffer from colds again or anything because of hypnosis. I mean, they're very guarded about what kind of results you're going to get from it, with good reason. They understand that it's not a cure-all and it's not a panacea for everything, but it is an approximation of what you would get in a Dianetic session if they were being really honest about it. So you could go avail yourself of that, I suppose. What the thing about Dianetics and Scientology is, over the years, L. Ron Hubbard threw a hodgepodge of all kinds of things together into this cauldron and sort of stirred it all up, and then sprinkled his own cosmology all over it. And that's really what Dianetics and Scientology are. It's not a unified field of evolved principles that were discovered step by step. That's not how this was put together at all. So it's really kind of random as to when you say the workable parts of Dianetics and Scientology. I go, well, there's books and books and books and books. I mean, they just go on, and there's a lot of crap in there. And some of it might work for you, and most of it's not, and I don't even know where to begin to tell you what's going to work on you. And even then, the word work is kind of problematic, because again, are we talking about entering a euphoric state where you feel better, even though nothing really substantial has been done for you, or are we talking about cures? Because if you're looking for cures, none of this stuff is going to give you cures. None of this stuff is going to permanently take away, pain, stress, and trauma that you're experiencing. It just doesn't work that way. So I guess that's a bit of a rant about the whole thing, I guess, or my sort of take on it. Maybe I wish I had a more solid answer for you. Go to page 49 of Dianetics and that little process will work. But it doesn't really, I really wouldn't recommend or endorse any part of it. I would instead say, look, put all this stuff to the side, just ignore it, skip it, go out into the world, look at where medicine's at, look at where healing is at, go find something where nobody's trying to deceive you or over promise and under deliver. You don't want any of that. You want to approach these things with a realistic, pragmatic, real practical world, kind of view, and have expectations low, and stay the hell away from anything that is pseudoscientific. Stay away from Gwyneth Paltrow's crap and Deepak Chopra's crap and all this nonsense that these people are peddling. Unfortunately, we're not in a great place in terms of being able to cure everything. So people thinking that they're feeling so much better as a result of, some herb they took or some, mantra they chanted. Well, that's nice that you feel better, but let's not call that curing something, because that's not really what that's about. So, okay, anyway, there you go. Okay, now as far as how I met my wife, I'm going to do this real fast because it's really not a very exciting story. I met my wife at the Secular Hub here in Denver, which is a meetup group for atheists, humanists, skeptics, kind of secular type minded people. And we first met there, but we weren't like hanging out or anything like that. This was a few years ago when I first moved here to Denver. I think it was 5 years ago. And then what ended up happening was she and I have a mutual friend who was a comedian, and we went out with her one night separately. Like me and the comedian friend, I'll go watch you do some open mics. And she also was going to see her friend do some open mics. So we were all hanging out. And then we started getting along, and then we started talking, and then we started talking more, and then we started going out. So that's pretty much how it happened. Like I said, not super exciting story, but it was certainly fun for me to live through. So that's what happened there.